Are we live? Alright, I think we're live. Hello, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. Welcome to preseason. As you can tell, we're very much in preseason form, just like Chelsea, just like our transfer window, just like everything else. We got the Lucas Piazon face scruff, which looks as good on us as it does on him, which is to say, not good at all. But we're here, we're back. We took a break from this Facebook Live business for about the last month and a half. Got our batteries recharged, all that good stuff. Let's see if we can remember how to do all of this, since I was so bad at it before, and it's unclear if I'm any better at it now. But we'll be here for, I'd say about an hour. I'm sure we'll have plenty of things to talk about in the transfer window, which is probably what anybody at all is interested in, and has been for the last month. It's always a little ironic that the transfer window tends to be just about the busiest time as far as the blog is concerned, as opposed to when the season's actually going and we're playing games and winning trophies and things like that. Already there's at least 3 questions about Bakayoko. However you say his name. We're waiting for Sandro. Yeah, everybody else is waiting for Sandro as well. I don't think Sandro is really waiting for us, unfortunately. So that could be a problem. As far as Diego Costa, of course, is the big problem with him probably leaving. Although I think the Star ran a story this morning repeating what the Sun tried to sell a couple days ago, that there might be some peace talks between Costa and Conte. Of course, Costa's not even at preseason so far. He's been excused, is the official line from the club. He's been given a couple extra days for no reason given, which is to say that he is basically gone, and all we have to do is figure out how much money we could potentially get from Atletico, who are probably unable to give more than 26 million pounds, which is about 30 million euros, which is at best about half of what Chelsea are hoping for. So I'm not sure how they're going to resolve this in anything other than Chelsea giving in and getting the 30 million from Atletico and getting rid of Costa, unless these silly stories from the Sun and the Star come true, that they can resolve their differences, which probably won't happen. So right now in preseason, we have the dynamic striker duo of Michy Batshuayi and an old friend we might remember by the name of Loic Remy, who is apparently still alive and still kicking. He played about 2 minutes all of last season at Crystal Palace. He's been injured a lot, which we might remember from 2 years ago. Seems to be the case a lot with Remy. So yeah, those are our 2 strikers in preseason right now. And if that doesn't get you excited, I am not sure what will. So yeah, Morata obviously is the big name. It seems to be the obvious solution to our Costa dilemma. The problem is apparently Madrid rejected upwards of 80 million pounds from Manchester United for Morata. And even though we supposedly were willing to offer 75 for Lukaku, I'm not so sure 80 million is something that we're really willing to do with Morata. Of course, there's the whole connection with Conte from a few years ago with Juventus, and we did supposedly try to sign Morata last season as well. It still seems like 80 million, it just seems like an amount that you don't associate with Chelsea spending in the transfer market. In fact, many people have noticed that the sweet spot for Chelsea seems to be in the mid-30s. regardless of what year we're talking about, we haven't spent more than that since Torres, I believe. It was Torres hit game for 50, and I think we're still a little bit smarting from that failure. He did win that corner, so we all love Fernando nowadays. But since then, the bulk of Chelsea's signings the biggest ones have been in the mid-30s, and that includes people like Hazard, Conte, Rudiger, who just signed a couple days ago, Fabregas, Costa, all these guys mid-30s, Sen even, if we want to go back even further than that. So it's in all that, Morata at 80 million is just not something that really strikes me as something that the Chelsea board would go for. Of course, I'm not on the board, so who knows what they're thinking. There's a story this morning that Chelsea are trying to lowball it at 60 million, which is what we offered last summer and didn't work out. So it's unclear why we would think it would ever work out now. But that seems to be our MO in trying to get a good deal. And sometimes it works, like with Rudiger, who came for 35 million euros plus a 4 million euro bonus, so about 35 million pounds. And that worked out. We're trying to do something similar with this Bakayoko character from Monaco. The problem is now that we're dragging our feet, even though there might be some injury thing, we'll get to that in a minute. But, Bakayoko has been supposedly undergoing a medical for about a month and a half now, since we agreed a fee at the beginning of June and then again at the middle of June, right around 40 million euros. Something just went official from Chelsea. So now that we're dragging our feet, now there's stories of Manchester United coming in and trying to gazump us, which is a fun word to say, but less of a fun experience, as we all just experienced with Lukaku. So at some point you just gotta pull the trigger. And if you're losing a couple million pounds on the deal, I guess it has to happen at some point. But we are definitely seem to be very much sticking to our principles kind of deal, kind of club, where we don't want to set the precedent of being willing to pay, say, 80 million pounds for a Morata, and now other clubs knowing that this is something that Chelsea are willing to do. We might have to do it, but I'm sure it's nowhere near our first choice. Hang on a second. Oh, yeah. Yeah, so something went official that somebody's bothering me about. Oh, Ola Aina has gone to Hull City, which we were expecting for a while. And I think he was one of the absentees from yesterday's training, which was the first day back. So good luck to young Ola at Hull City, where he will be playing under the former Russian national team coach, Leonid Slutsky. Although it's much more tempting to say Slutsky, but I'm pretty sure it's more of a U sound from what I know. He's, of course, good friends with Roman Abramovich, and one of the reasons he has the Hull City job is because Chelsea took him under their wings in January and got him acclimated to England for over the last 6 months. So that was nice of us. And now he's repaying us by taking Ola Aina, who's expected to be one of several loanees going to Hull City. Since they're in the championship, they can loan more than just one player. All right. Do you see us being linked with Llorente completely BS, or there's actually possibilities? That's one of the signings that I think would not surprise me if it happened, just because we were quite clearly linked with him in January, and I think that almost happened before we just kind of agreed, possibly everybody agreed to just maintain the status quo until the end of the season. We've already sent Tammy Abraham to Swansea. So we could actually do ourselves and Tammy a huge favor by getting Llorente out of there. Obviously, Conte and Llorente have a good relationship from back from Juventus, and he'd be a pretty good backup option. He would not be a good first choice striker, obviously, but as a backup, I think he would be pretty perfect. You know, come something around the 10 million range, even less with just a year left on his contract. I think that's something that's pretty workable, and it would be a win-win as far as we're concerned. Is Lewandowski coming? Yeah, I don't think that's happening. That was just something his agent tried to stir up a little bit, and then Carlo Ancelotti denied it all. It's a nice fantasy, but I don't think Lewandowski can come out of Bayern. Why are we not moving for Douglas Costa, who seems to be available? That's a good question. My only guess would be that attacking midfield is probably the lowest on the list of priorities right now. And even if we might be able to retrain Douglas Costa as a wing back or whatever, like say the next Moses, spending however many millions on him right now and wasting time on trying to get him away from Juventus, which is where he seems to be going, is probably a waste of time. What about Alex Sandro? Well, do we really need Alex Sandro? That's another good question. There's two questions roll into one. I think we need Alex Sandro if we assume, which many do, that he is the best wingback in football right now, not named Marcelo, and Marcelo's not going anywhere from Real Madrid. So, in that sense, Alex Sandro is something whom we could use because he is the best at what he does right now. And if he's on the left wing, behind Hazard, I think that left wing is easily one of the best in the world. I'm not saying it's bad with Alonso there, but Alex Sandro is a little better than Marcos Alonso, just in general, overall from observations and all that. I mean, it's always who's better, who's not. Alonso has his pros. Obviously, he's tall and we can aim for him with headers. He's good on set pieces, as both in terms of heading him in and scoring goals. But Alex Sandro overall is easily one of the best, if not the best, at the position. At 70 million euros or 75 million, which now seems to be the asking price from Juventus, that's a bit less of an obvious yes. But if we are looking to upgrade a position, and what we've learned last year, I think more than anything, is that in the 3-4-3, the wingbacks are the biggest key. And us winning the league had a tremendous amount to do with both Moses and Alonso playing really well for most of the year. They didn't play really well for the whole season. Alonso had a bit of a slow start before finishing strong. Moses was kind of the opposite. He impressed right away and then kind of finished the season on a down note. He also picked up a toe injury at some point in the spring, so that could have affected it. And I think everybody still remembers his atrocious game in the FA Cup final, which was a pretty bad note for him to end the season. But so again, spending 75 million on Alex Sandro does not strike me again as something that we would really want to do. But if we want to upgrade Alonso on left wing back, then Alex Sandro is what we should be going for. That said, it's definitely another one of those transfers that kind of was exciting for a minute, and now it's in a holding pattern where really nothing's happening. We supposedly made that £61 million or 70 million euro bid, and now your guess is as good as mine. Bakayoko, yes. I believe, I hope, I think that Bakayoko is really just a matter of days now. Truly, really, after 6 weeks of medicals. But there were people even trying to figure out what flight he was taking yesterday, whether that was the one private jet flight out of Nice to London, which there was a flight like that, whether that was his plane or not, whether he was even in Monaco. There was a report that said he was in Paris. Other people said he was Monaco. He was flying somewhere because he posted a picture, unless of course that was not a real-time picture and that was from somewhere else. Who knows? Who knows these days? I really don't think the Manchester United bid is anything more than really either United just trying to mess with us again, or just a rumor kind of stirred up. I mean, all of this started in the Sun on Friday. They posted, even for them, it was just said that it was a gossip, just saying, oh, there's this possibility. And over the last few days, it's been repeated, this supposed willingness of Manchester United to possibly maybe submit a £40 million bid for Bakayoko after our £35 million bid was accepted. And that supposedly is making Monaco think now that they can get 40 million out of us. We're supposedly not budging on this, which supposedly, maybe, possibly could get Monaco to back out of the deal and get Bakayoko to Manchester United. I mean, it's again, it's really tough to tell. I mean, it really, at this point right now, this story sells really well because this basically is what happened with Lukaku. As it turns out, the Lukaku Manchester United thing had been going on for quite a while. Lukaku himself has said that he's been in contact with Mourinho for a year and a half. He's 18 months. He did an interview with a podcast in Los Angeles, or San Diego, actually, San Diego based, but Southern California. They're called Beyond the Pitch, and he said to them that he's been in contact with Mourinho for 18 months to basically to get this deal through the door eventually. So it shows you never truly know what's happening behind the scenes. We heard that Conte was in contact with Lukaku as well, but we also heard that Conte didn't want Lukaku, and then 2 weeks later, Lukaku was suddenly his favorite choice, and then he was ready to quit Chelsea over the whole thing, and it was just, I mean, it's just nonsense, really. 90%, 95% really of what's out there it just proves to be nonsense, and it just, it gets tiring, it gets boring, but on the other hand, it's also pretty interesting and can be fun. Can also not be fun when you get gazumped to the tune of world record signing. Who then? Lukaku. Whatever. Taco Azpilicueta being sold to Barcelona. Now we have Rudiger. That would be seriously foolish. Any credence? Yeah, I don't think there's been, the Barcelona thing had come up at the beginning of the summer, and Azpilicueta gave an interview to one of the Spanish radio stations who like to push these sort of rumors, and Azpilicueta said basically that it's a great honor and it shows just how far he's come since his days in Marseille and Osasuna and all those other places. It's a great honor to be linked with Barcelona, but his heart is at Chelsea, his heart is in London, etc., etc. And I think we can be rest assured that Azpilicueta is going nowhere anytime soon. He signed the contract some time ago, maybe. I don't know. Just give him a new contract just to be safe and call it good. That's what I do. Might as well give him the captain's armband. Lock him up. Dave is ours forever and ever. Oh yes, and then somebody mentioned the knee thing with Bakayoko. So as it turns out, the stories that was breaking yesterday, we might have a decent reason this time for delaying this whole thing. Unlike say Rudiger, who we supposedly agreed that whole thing on June 30th or July 1st. It took us 9 days to push this whole thing through. And surely it didn't take 9 days to film that incredibly cringy announcement video that has joined the trend of other incredibly cringy announcement videos, and I can't wait for this trend to die down just as much as the dab needs to go away. But so as it turns out, Bakayoko had some sort of knee injury. Several people have spotted that he's often played with a wrap on his right knee, which probably was a horror show, says Joe, the video. Oh, that's terrible. I really hope it's not a series. Like, if we sign Bakayoko next, is he going to be hiding in the storeroom there too? That's terrible. So Bakayoko had been playing with a wrap all on his knee for much of the season, and at the end of the season he went in for what was described as a routine surgery, just a keyhole surgery, just an operation with a small incision. Yeah, usually a really quick recovery. Didn't sound like it was anything super major, but sometimes they said you got to clear up something. So whatever, it was maybe like a little bone spur. Who knows? They don't really reveal details, but it turns out, or it would appear, that his recovery from that surgery is not going as quickly as anticipated as well, and so that's why he's been unable to take his medical, which sounds a bit fishy, but perhaps we learned our lesson from the whole Torres thing when we, again, not only did we push a £50 million deal through, but we pushed it through without a medical, and then as it turned out, he was still halfway broken. So perhaps that's why we're waiting. There are other reports out of France yesterday that said that he might miss up to 2 more months. There was a report from the Telegraph that kind of said Chelsea don't believe that to be the case, and that his medical should happen this week. So don't hold your breath, because if you had been doing that since the first time we heard that it should happen, you'd probably be dead. Charlie Musonda as the next CR7. That's a bold call, but Charlie Musonda Jr. did receive an official first-team squad number 17, which is Eden Hazard's old number, as we know, and Charlie and Eden are good buddies. So that's a good sign, and it sounds like, so far anyway, that old Musonda Jr., who got permission from the Premier League to put Junior on his shirt as well, so that he doesn't get confused by his father, who's much older, but apparently this is a thing. So instead of just Musonda, it's Musonda Jr. on shirt number 17, and he had been training with the team since January when we recalled him from Real Betis. So that's good. There's youth. There's a bit of youth. We have so much youth. At some point, some of them is going to stick around, right? Has Juve shut the door on Alexandro leaving? Asks Max Stewart. Well, that certainly seems to be the headline lately, and I'm not so sure they've shut anything that hadn't been shut before, or opened anything that wasn't open before. I think the situation is basically the same as it has been for the last 4 months, where Alexandro has 3 options: come to Chelsea, go to PSG, or sign a new contract at Juventus. According to the rumors, as much as you can trust the rumors, Chelsea are offering the most money to Juventus and are offering the highest wages. But there's also now increasing rumors that Alexandro doesn't want to leave, which, maybe he really likes it there. And there's also increasing rumors of Juventus upping their bid once again, which, if that reminds you of any situation from last summer, that would be Napoli and Kalidou Koulibaly, or however you say his name, where we submitted like 3 or 4 bids, and Napoli just kept increasing their asking price, and eventually we bailed on that deal after wasting 2 months on it. So the Sandro deal is starting to really sound like that deal, which would mean that we should probably get out and do something else. such as Baba Rahman, as just mentioned by Mamun Rashid. The trouble with Baba, I think that's actually Alonso and Baba Rahman could make a good pairing for left wing back. The problem with Baba Rahman is that he's recovering still from his ACL injury from the end of January. I don't think he's even back in training yet. I don't think he was there. So much like with Zuma, Baba won't really be able to contribute until at the earliest January, and then he probably needs several more months to get back up to speed. So basically, this coming season is a lost season for him. So it's maybe next in 2018 we can look forward to trying Baba Rahman as left wing back once again. But for this coming season, we need somebody else. And unless we're really willing to develop Kennedy as Alonso's backup, we're gonna need to look towards some other options. Unfortunately, Alexis Sanchez to Chelsea. Any possibility? Yeah, Alexis. That rumor died away for a while too, and then suddenly it burst back onto the scene. Except this time, Alexis seems to be going to Manchester City. Or possibly not, because now there's the latest is supposedly that Arsenal want £90 million for him, which is outrageous. And obviously nobody's going to pay £90 million for Alexis Sanchez, who is about 28 years old. And as good as he is, he has basically 2 years left. I don't think that that City, as much as they would want him, would want to pay 90 million. Basically, that situation is trending towards what Wenger said, several months ago when Chelsea appeared to be in the lead for this. Was they're basically going to play out Alexis's contract this season, and then he's going to walk for free, which seems like a bad business decision. But Arsenal, if there's any club that is going to stick to their misguided principles, it's going to be Arsenal. So I don't think Alexis is going to be moving anywhere, unless he really starts throwing a hissy fit. In which case, who knows? Who knows what Arsenal would do? Dembele, the other Dembele, who's at Dortmund. I'm not even going to try to say his first name, but he's the young kid who's really exciting. Used to play at Rennes alongside Jeremy Boga. Should we be interested? Yes, we should be interested in the other O. Dembele at Dortmund. Incidentally, we should probably be interested in Moussa Dembele too, the Celtic guy, not the Spurs midfielder, the Celtic forward who's 19 or 20. That the Dembele, as if so going back to what we talked about at the very beginning, in that Chelsea have this kind of a sweet spot when it comes to transfers in the mid-30s, possibly into the 40s range. Somebody like Moussa Dembele from Celtic could be had for 35 to 40, which was the price that was rumored in January. And many people think that he is the real deal, the next real deal. So instead of possibly spending twice that amount on Morata, who's 24 and obviously pretty good, but possibly not 80 million good, we could be try to spend 40 on Moussa Dembele instead. It's a similar move to what we tried with Batshuayi last summer, and that hasn't quite worked out yet. The mid 30s move for a young and promising striker, but it seems that seems much more likely to me, even though there aren't too many rumors at the moment, than spending that money on Morata or Belotti, who also has a €100 million buyout. And even there were some quotes yesterday from the Torino chairman that if it could be read that if Belotti tries to leave, then maybe they'd settle for something less than 100 million, 99 million, 80 million. So I don't know. I mean, Belotti. A lot of people are high on him because he is a good looking striker. You know, he's quick, strong, good in the air. The trouble with him is he's literally only done it for one season. But he probably scored almost as many goals in that one season as Morata has over the last however many seasons. They're obviously two very different strikers. But just in that sense, Belotti seems like somebody who might actually be worth his transfer fee at some point. It just seems like an outrageous amount to bid on somebody who played for a mid-table Serie A side and has had one really, really good goal-scoring season. You know, compared to say Lukaku, who many would say he's also not worth the price that Manchester United paid for him, but at least he has a several-year goal-scoring track record, even if they're against whoever the Bournemouths of the Premier League. We should sign Zlatan mid-season. I don't know if there's one striker who strikes me as anything but a Conte signing is Zlatan. Could you imagine that clash of egos? We already had enough fireworks with Conte and Costa. You don't need more Zlatan. Oh my god. Mbappe and Dembele. Yeah, basically, I mean, if you traded if those two guys traded places at the moment, Dembele and Mbappe, I could easily see Dembele being, the 130 million euro guy and Mbappe being the 40 million euro guy. It's one of those. Ram says, I'd rather sign Troy Deeney than Zlatan. Well, I'm so sure. I won't sure go that far, but it's a good shout. How about Danilo? I must admit I don't know much about Danilo. The one person I know who knows something about Danilo is one of our writers, Felipe. And Felipe does not seem to like Danilo at all. So I'd say no Danilo. But I don't know. How bad could it be? He plays for Real Madrid, right? Is Costa still leaving? Short answer, yes. I heard about Benteke, says Hamza. Yes, that was a throwaway line in a Telegraph report from Matt Law. Many people are souring a little bit on Matt Law, but he has his sources, so we kind of have to trust what he says comes from the club. It's one of those things where if he was writing a whole lot of nonsense, his access to Chelsea would be cut off. It's kind of like let's call it the Neil Ashton situation, who used to write for the Mail and quite clearly had several good sources at Chelsea. He was able to break the starting lineup for the Champions League final, for example, in 2012. And nowadays he's slumming it with the Sun and has no sources at Chelsea because he blabbed a bit too much and said a whole lot of nonsense. So in that sense, whenever Matt Law writes his report for the Telegraph, we kind of have to trust that he's at least distributing information that, even if it doesn't necessarily come from Chelsea or isn't briefed by Chelsea, it's something that they would approve of. So in that sense, we can kind of think of it as the company line. You can go probably don't have to go as far as saying as a mouthpiece, but he's somebody that we know he has solid sources. Whether those sources are acting in their own interest and trying to get their own story out there, well, that's what everybody else is doing, right? When you see a transfer rumor, you know that some agent or somebody out there is spreading information that's beneficial to them. So, how do we get here? Oh, Benteke. So yeah, there was a throwaway line in one of Matt Law's reports in the Telegraph that said that Chelsea are also considering, possibly maybe, looking at Christian Benteke as a backup striker. The key word there being backup, in which case it would be cool. Benteke and Hazard are good buddies, so you know I'm all for signing all of Eden's friends to keep him happy. If we signed Benteke as a primary first choice striker, I'd be highly concerned because he's had a couple good seasons, but he's proven to not really be that consistent. But you know, as a backup, I suppose it's all right. Keita Balde from Lazio. You know, I've seen that rumor floating around a couple times as well. I've yet to really see it from something that I would call, or anything I would call, a trustworthy source. So far, it's all like all these random Italian sites and Calcio Mercato, all these places. But Keita Balde, I've seen him described as basically a hidden gem, which sounds like something that Chelsea should explore if he's a hidden gem, which would mean that he would not cost 60 to 80 million pounds, but could possibly produce on the level of a Morata or a Belotti. Buy Drogba. Maybe Didier can come back on a season-long loan. He's clearly far too good for the second division in the United States, because he scores all their goals nowadays. I think he has 4 and 5 or something like that, and all of them are like game-tying or game-winning goals. So he's like 75 years old or 39 or however old he is, but he's still pretty good. Chicharito. I always liked Chicharito because he scored against us, so that means that we should, if he signed him, then he would have stopped scoring against us. See also Carlos Tevez. I like Chicharito also because he is a poacher, and I think poachers are a dying breed. But I adore strikers who are just pure strikers, and all they do is score goals, pop up in random places like Pippo Inzaghi, and score a goal. So I think it would be kind of cool. But I don't know. I don't know how available he might or might not be. But I always like, and he's still like, he's only like 28 or 29. You think he's been around for ages, but he's still in a decent, couple seasons. But just like Benteke, I think having him as a first choice striker is probably a bad idea. I don't know. Maybe we can sign like 5 backup strikers and then have like a Hunger Games style. Only 2 will win. See who comes out on top. Of course, maybe it's maybe we've been secretly grooming Michy Batshuayi all along to rise up and be the hero that we need and the hero that we deserve. Batshuayi is so frustrating. He's adorable. Love that guy. I'm not so sure I'd love him as a first choice striker, but he did score like 3 goals in his last 3 games, something like that, right? Yeah, give him a chance. You never know. Are you not seeing my posts? Asks. Yeah. Sorry, I'm not going to disgrace your name by trying to pronounce it. Yes, I am seeing your posts, but can only get to so many. We don't need Llorente. I don't think we need him, but if Batshuayi does leave on a loan or whatever, assuming we sign a first choice striker, or we name Batshuayi our first choice striker, then we need a backup who is not Loic Remy. Sorry, Loic. As much as I like you, no. As much as I appreciate Loic Remy's contributions to our title in 2014-15, and I think his time as a Chelsea player is long over, and it's only a matter of time before we collect a couple million for him to wherever he might go. So anyway, as a backup striker, I think Llorente would be a smart signing. Much more smarter than, say, Benteke, who would cost more than 10 million. Or Chicharito, even, just because we know that Llorente plays to the style that Conte wants. He's great in the air, great at hold up, all that link up play that's crucial to the front 3. Llorente, third choice, that could be all right. We need Aubameyang. Aubameyang. Yes, he could be alright. But, I don't know. You're not really seeing much chatter concerning him. He seems to be leaving Dortmund, but he's either going to China, which lately is not really an option, but still seems to be an option for him, or possibly AC Milan, who are in a massive rebuild and are actually making some really good signings, possibly by reading our summer transfer notebook, since they've signed about half of those guys already, including like Frank Kessié, who we were linked with him pretty heavily in January. They just signed Andrea Conti, the right back. So, you know, making some good moves, except they're not signing Mario Pasalic, however you say his name, the Chelsea loanee who was there last season and really wanted to join, but now that AC Milan are once again rich, they don't want our our loanees. Is the Daily Star reliable? According to the Daily Star, Chelsea signing Sanchez. Daily Star is not reliable. They are good as tissue papers. Yeah, that's a pretty good use for the Daily Star and the Daily Express. Daily Express, Sir Alex Ferguson's most favorite newspaper. Costa behavior worries me. Yeah, I think we can say goodbye to Diego Costa and hope that we get like 30 million for him, and maybe put that towards a fresh new signing at striker. Morata and James will be good signings. I don't think James Rodriguez is really somebody that Chelsea would ever sign, not with Conte in charge. But I could be wrong. I saw there was a rumor linking him with Bayern Munich for a reunion with Carlo Ancelotti, and it's a rumor that I could believe. I could see that happening. What came of the Bernardeschi links? Bernardeschi appears to be pretty close to signing with Juventus, as most good players in Italy tend to do. That's a little unfortunate, because Bernardeschi is a pretty cool player who could certainly upgrade or at least provide a fantastic rotational option in our attacking trio. Loic for the golden boot. That's right, Rupesh reminds us everybody that James does not come under the 30 million cap, and that's the end of that rumor. Costa and Conte, they had a good season together. What's going on? Well, if we are to believe the reports, despite all appearances to the contrary, Costa and Conte have had a pretty strained relationship for most of the season. Even before the whole January thing happened with the Chinese interest, or quote-unquote interest. There's that whole bust-up in the game against Leicester City. And then there was... what was the other one? There's there's a couple things that were played off, like, say, Costa drinking beer after each game. So random things like that. Which, Conte was like, oh, that's fine, they can have one beer. But then there was a report later that said, well, he's actually did not like that too much. Same thing with the whole cake thing when Costa was named to the bench in one of the last games of the season. And he raided the media room at halftime for like an orange or something, or a cake. And... that was played off for a joke in the post-match conference, but then supposedly in private, Conte did not appreciate such insubordination or whatever, which I could believe. The dude likes control, and definitely likes to keep his players in line. So, if we are to believe all that, and then that's of course before the whole text thing. And nobody's ever denied the text happening, not even Chelsea. So I think we can safely assume that the text did happen. So if Conte texted Costa and said, thank you for the season, and we're not really counting on you for next season, well, that's that, it's kind of tough to come back from that. When your boss tells you that you're not needed, and then you say, fine, whatever, I'll go to Atletico instead. And then 2 months later, your boss says, well, actually, could we possibly, maybe? You'd be like, yeah, sorry, dude. Doesn't seem like. That said, Costa did tell Conte last summer that he wanted out, and then Atletico ended up signing Kevin Gameiro. So Costa had to, in his own words, he had to slink back to Conte with his tail tucked between his legs, and they ended up having a good season together. So maybe, you never truly know, never say never, and all that good stuff. But right now, especially now that, and then with Costa being given an excused absence for absolutely no particularly good reason, other than, here, let's work out your transfer to Atletico, and we don't want you around the first team to spread any discord or anything like that. Yeah, I don't think there's any coming back from the Conte Costa thing. Should we sign Gilo Bogi again? Ah, yes, the legend. Yeah, I don't even know what Gilo Bogi's up to. Is he still with Sunderland? That's unfortunate for them. Will Zuma and Christensen stay? Christensen, I think, is staying. I think that one is. It has to happen. Basically, even if Conte doesn't rate Christensen at all, he's either staying or he's getting sold like next summer. But I think he's, if we loan him out or even if we don't keep him, that basically is, you might as well shut down the loan system at that point. We wouldn't, obviously, and if Christensen turns out to be terrible, then we should sell him. But by all indications, he's pretty good. But the whole point of this loan system is to loan out a player for a couple seasons, make that transition from youth football to senior football. And Christensen's done that, and that's, if we go back on that promise of not even giving him a chance and all that stuff, then really, honestly, what's the point? So I think Christensen staying is basically a needed validation for the system to work in, not just now but in the future. For all the other players, this has to happen. And he doesn't have to become a Chelsea legend or anything, but he has to stick around for at least a season in the first team now that he's done 2 years at Gladbach, to validate this whole idea that we have with the loan system, to prove that this is how we're going to do business. So that said, there is kind of space for Zuma to stick around, because if we're sticking with a 3-man defense, we need 3 center backs, and the 3 center backs from last year are Cahill, David Luiz, and Azpilicueta. Christensen seems to be the replacement or the backup to David Luiz, which is the position he played a lot at Gladbach. The middle of the 3. We have Rudiger, who usually plays on the left of a 3. That's what he did at Germany, so he could possibly compete with Cahill. Of course, Rudiger is versatile enough to play on the right as well. Well, basically, we sold Ake, who was the backup to Cahill, and now we have Rudiger, who takes that and upgrades that position to possibly a starter. So that leaves a 6th position, a 6th player who could be Zuma, but Zuma needs time, actual minutes to play. And he said that himself before, kind of going back on those comments and saying, oh, actually, I don't want to go on loan. I want to stay and fight for my place in the team. But I think if there's a team that's offering Zuma a full year of starts and minutes, then he needs to take that and realize that it's not the end of his Chelsea career, but he needs that to fully rehab that knee and get back to anywhere near the level that he was before he got hurt. Because right now, from what we saw last year, he was not there, and being 6th choice defender is not going to get him there. So, short answer: Christensen staying, Zuma, hopefully, for his own sake, going out on loan and getting lots of minutes. Azpilicueta at right back. I don't think we're really considering that option. He seems to be much more of a center back in this system than a right back or right wing back. But could be wrong. He would certainly be a more defensive option or a less direct option than Moses. You know, Moses is pretty big on taking players on, driving to the driving towards goal into the penalty area and stuff like that. Azpilicueta can put in a pretty good cross, but he can do that really well from his current position at right center back. Not so much from the wing back, but he's versatile enough that he can play there. He even played left wing back, albeit not very well, but he did play it once last season, possibly twice. Any information on Bakayoko? Not that I'm aware of. Nothing new so far today. Yesterday, the story was that his medical should, again with the air quotes, should be happening this week, now that he is possibly good enough to take said medical with his knee injury thingy, which apparently seems to be the thing for our signings this summer. The knee. We're looking at. Nobody's really talked about this much, but Antonio Rudiger has a pretty decent history of knee injuries, and he's made an amazing recovery from last summer's ACL rupture. Is described as a rupture, and the dude had surgery on this. He was back to playing in 4 months. He's either he's got I don't know, titanium ligaments or some nonsense, but in the last 2.5 years on his right knee, he's blown his ACL and he's torn his meniscus. So basically, he's had a brand new knee now put in over the last 2.5 years, and apparently, he's none worse for the wear. But it's not something that's really been talked about. So hopefully, over his 9-day medical, we thoroughly examined his knee and are confident that it's not just gonna blow itself up in 2 weeks, which would be incredibly unfortunate. So maybe we're super careful with Bakayoko as well. Hopefully, I don't know. I don't think the Manchester United thing is anything more than just a threat, really, and possibly not even from Manchester United themselves. Maybe Monaco are sensing an opportunity here, or whoever Bakayoko's agent is sensing an opportunity to get more money out of Chelsea. We supposedly had a 40 million euro bid accepted. And now the story is that United are possibly maybe thinking about willing to offer 40 million pounds, which is about 5 million pounds more than our bid when you convert all that. But it doesn't set a good precedent to constantly be willing to up your bid by 5 million pound increments anytime somebody sneezes and at another team. Jeremy Toljan from Hoffenheim, I believe. He was on our summer transfer notebook written by Joe Tweeds, and he seems to be pretty high on him. I personally don't know much about him other than he is a promising right back whose contract situation makes him a very cheap option. And you think like single digit millions, 5 to 6 million. So in that sense, he could and could remind people of Azpilicueta, who arrived for about 8 million pounds. So I think Toljan could be an interesting option. I haven't heard too many rumors. There was one brief mention of him by Sky Sports Germany. Sky Deutschland. It's unclear how reliable Sky Deutschland are. If they're these days, even Sky Sports is a bit of a hit and miss, and of course Sky Italia is fairly unreliable, although kind of trustworthy in terms of Italian sources, which are mostly all unreliable these days. I can't wait for Lukaku to be benched by Rashford by mid-season, says Tendai. It would be pretty funny. Unfortunately, I don't think Rashford really is that great either, but he's young and exciting and can run fast. He's in the right place at the right time, and sometimes that's how careers get started. So good for him. Yeah, I'm sure Lukaku will be fine. He'll score plenty of goals for United. I mean, they had Zlatan scored however many goals, 20 plus last season. I'm sure Lukaku can easily replicate that. With good teammates, etc., etc. Even Torres could score a handful of goals when he really wanted to. So I'm sure Lukaku will easily hit 20. And it is what it is. The key is for us to find a striker who can do the same. And if that's Batshuayi, which maybe he is, 10, 15 goals. I mean, there were several teams. Conte's Juventus really weren't that famed for having a high goal-scoring center forward. When he was playing with the likes of Morata and Llorente, well, he would never play with Morata, but whoever was there in the team, Tevez, Llorente, all these guys, low teens was really the high scorer. So we don't possibly need another, it's nice to have a Costa who scores you 20 plus goals a season, but we could possibly get by with somebody who only scores 10 and 15. And if that's Batshuayi, I'm sort of talking myself into this possibility, and possibly you should as well. You heard it here first. Michi is the hero that we deserve and the hero that we need. Latest on Morata, yeah. The story this morning on Morata is that we try to lowball them at 60 million, considering that Real Madrid supposedly rejected 80 million from Manchester United earlier this summer. I don't think 60 million is going to get it done, and both of those prices are higher than what I imagine Chelsea really would want to spend on any one player. But maybe they have a surprise up their sleeves, and we'll sign somebody. Actually make a club record signing that we've been rumored to do so for a month and a half now, whether that's at left back or center forward or whatever. When will Hazard be back? The news on Hazard is that he's at Cobham with the rest of the squad, and his cast is off the ankle. He's walking around, and he's beginning his rehab this week, I'm assuming. So that means it's about 2 months is probably what we should be looking at. I think we'll be good if he's back in September at some point. So I'm hoping personally that he's back after the first international break of the season, but it could be as long as end of September. So whatever it takes, I suppose. He's gonna miss a handful of games for sure, and that's unfortunate. But hopefully he'll be back better than ever. Sissoko of Celtic. You mean Dembele? Moussa Dembele from Celtic would be a pretty cool signing, and he would surprise a lot of people, I think. As much as a 40 million euro signing can be surprising. Yeah, there's no news on Aubameyang, how you say his name. Thankfully, so I don't have to say his name a lot. But I'm not really seeing much out there about him. He possibly would cost 60 million plus. I don't know. I think if he goes anywhere, he's gonna end up at AC Milan, which seems to be the hot rumor. Alex Sandro, as we mentioned, is a bit of a holding pattern. Juventus upped their bid to 75, or up their asking price to 75, according to a rumor this weekend. And that's now the third time they've done that. We started at 40, then we bid 50, Then we bid 60 million euros, and then there was a story in the Times that says that we were going to bid 70 million euros. And here we are still without Alex Sandro, who's still considering whether he even wants to leave Juventus. So, I think when the Alex Sandro rumors first popped up, I was 100% convinced that they were nothing more than a play for a new contract. And sure enough, after about a month of Chelsea rumors, there was a story that Juventus have tabled a new offer, a contract extension. So my original guess is looking good right now. I should say. It would not surprise me if Alex Sandro ends up signing a new contract, and we keep rolling with Marcos Alonso, which is not the worst thing in the world. I think Alonso gets a possibly unfair shake a little bit. He's maybe because he just looks so leggy, like big long legs. Also looks really good in sunglasses. All right. Before we go, we try to put together a list of the 30 players who were back in preseason training on Monday, which was the first day. The big people who are missing are obviously Diego Costa, who is excused to figure out his transfer. Rudiger himself, who is on vacation still since he was playing at the Confederations Cup with Germany. And Eden Hazard, who is injured. So those were the three big misses. There's other people who are missing, obviously, like somebody like Ola Aina, who just completed his loan move to Hull City. I believe that makes him the 10th loanee already of this season. So we're well on our way to once again hitting the 30 plus loanee. He's the 10th. We've already sent the first guy out was Danilo Pentic, who went back to Partizan Belgrade from where we signed him a couple years ago. Goalkeepers Nathan Baxter and Brad Collins both have gone out to lower league loans. In fact, to Woking and Forest Green. We've loaned out Fenkati Dabo to Vitesse, who's probably the first of many to go there. Charlie Colkett, who's still only 20 years old, which surprised me. I figured he was a little older. He also joined him at Vitesse. Tammy Abraham, of course, went to Swansea. Casey Palmer went to Huddersfield. Todd Kane went back to the Netherlands, this time with FC Groningen. Todd Kane, of course, coming off of ACL injury, which basically cost him a year. So hopefully he gets back up to speed. He's already 23, so I think we slowly have to admit that his Chelsea ship has sailed. But I always liked Toddy Kane, so hopefully he lands on his feet. Quintero went to Siberia. That's right. Quintero was loaned to FC Rostov, wherever that is, somewhere in Russia. And now, today, Ola Aina, loanee number 10, is at Hull City. So plenty of action to keep track of, and that's, probably only the third. That's right, Izzy Brown probably going to Brighton, which will make another Premier League loan. Loftus-Cheek is possibly having a medical today at Crystal Palace, which sounds like a terrible move, but we should remember that Crystal Palace are managed by Frank de Boer these days, not Big Sam Allardyce. So that could be I think that could be a pretty interesting move for Loftus-Cheek. And after 3 seasons of being in the first team and really not playing much at all, if he gets lots of minutes at Palace, that really could be the making of him. And he's really not that old yet at all. Marco Van Ginkel is probably going to PSV, and probably my guess is going to be a permanent move. There's really not much point to keeping Van Ginkel around. He's there in training today, or was there yesterday, and the story was that Conte wanted to take a look at him, but I think he's found his level, really, unfortunately, Van Ginkel. None of his moves really to higher level leagues have worked out yet. I mean, obviously a lot of that had to do with injuries, but he's had plenty of success at PSV, so I could. That's a good place for him. That's his level. There's no shame in that. Charlie Musonda, I think, is going to be at least the token youth player who sticks around the first team this season, and possibly Hazard's injury could gift him a couple more opportunities in the early season. And Musonda has been training when he wasn't injured. He had been training with the first team since January, and I think that if he sticks around, that will have a lot to do with that. Conte, he likes to work with players and then improve them. So if he's been working with Musonda for 6 months or whatever, I could see him keeping him around. Lewis Baker, I've heard loans mentioned for Baker as well. Trying to think what it was. There's a story that he might be going to Swansea, which obviously he can't because Tammy Abraham's there. Bournemouth, I believe, was mentioned, which could be an interesting destination. Burnley, maybe. I don't know if really that's something where Baker could really thrive that well. Of course, there's still Watford, which could be an interesting move. Unless we send, if Chalobah goes to Watford, it's probably going to be on a permanent move, hopefully with a buyback. So then we could still loan Baker there. Selling Van Ginkel with a buyback wouldn't be a bad move. Yeah, I think that would be the smart move for everybody involved. It's not like we're gonna command an outrageous fee for Van Ginkel from some Dutch team. So selling him for a few million and putting in like a 20 million pound buyback, which is kind of sort of what we did with Matic when we tacked him on to that David Luiz deal. We valued him at like 5 million, something like that, in that deal, and then bought him back for like 21. That's I think that would be a decent move or a decent option to put on Van Ginkel. So I think that's where we stand with those guys. Let's see who else might be leaving. Remy, obviously, I think will be sold. Kennedy had also been linked with a loan with the Dutch team, namely PSV. Mason Mount, youngster, 18 years old, who's been really impressing at the under 19 Euros. It's assumed that he's going to go to Vitesse, which could be a very interesting move for him. Vitesse could have a very pass-happy and creative midfield there with Mason Mount and Charlie Colkett. So this could be something to watch. Callas was mentioned with Hull City. I think if Callas goes anywhere, he's going to be sold, which has to happen at some point. There were other stories that we're going to loan out Tomori again. We're going to loan out Jake Clark-Salter. Both of those guys are in training with the first team right now, but I'm guessing they will be gone soon. And old Captain America, Matt Miazga, is slated for a loan as well to somewhere better than the Eredivisie. Michael Hector. Michael Hector is so important that there's basically been no rumors about him at all. I'm sure there was something and maybe I just missed it. But, the pride of Jamaica, Michael Hector, is he's not in training and who knows where he is. Mystery man. What about Icardi from Inter? Yeah, I don't think Inter's selling Mauro Icardi. Could be wrong. Could be an interesting... we've been kind of pigeonholed into this either Lukaku or Morata thing for most of the year, and we're talking like 2017, like 6 months, which kind of ignores the fact that there's plenty of other strikers out there who possibly could be available if we just made an effort, maybe. Who knows? How was Hector last year, by the way? I guess he was all right. Yeah, got lots of red cards. I think he got a red card in like his first game there, something like that. He's got up to a good start, and He was a starter for them for a while, but I think expecting anything more than a poor top level player or a decent second tier level player out of Hector is optimistic already. He's better than Gilo Boji. We'll give him that, right? So nice signing there, Chelsea. His baby Ramen's still hurt. Yeah, he's in recovery, but he's not really going. He's not going to contribute. Yeah, Lucas Piazon, actually, that's a good name. We haven't heard in a while. He is back in training right now. He's been pictured. He's the inspiration to my facial hair. This is what I call the Piazon. Yeah, so he's back in training. It looked like he would be joining Fulham on a permanent basis, but Piazon tends to do that. He tends to fall in love with all his loan clubs. Like when he went to Frankfurt, he wanted to join Frankfurt after like 2 months. And then he was at Fulham, and he was all buying into White's this and White's that, or whatever their nickname is. But he's back at Chelsea training, so who knows what's happening there. I am expecting him to be sold on. Somebody else was saying, we're clearing house, but basically, a lot of these loanees that we've had for a while, they're approaching their mid-20s, and you can only be a loanee for so long. Like at some point, you gotta move on, and so it's just a cycle, right? These guys we bought. I mean, Piazon we bought for $8 million. We clearly valued him, and we thought he'd be pretty good. So that didn't quite happen. But hopefully he's going to have a pretty decent career anyway. We just need to cycle out the older players like Piazon or Callas or all these guys, and then get the new young guns in. If we were offered Harry Kane of Tottenham, yeah, I don't think Kane's going anywhere. That's a non-starter. Piazon was meant to be the next Kaká. That's right. He even looked like him a little bit and played like him for just a bit, but then it didn't quite work out for him. He was really good in the youth teams though, Piazon. Oh man, so good. Anyway, I think we're gonna go wrap it up here. I don't want to bore you too long. Been here for a little bit over an hour. Now that it's preseason and everybody's gearing up for the new season, we're not going to wait another month and a half to do one of these videos. We'll try to do at least a weekly, I'd say. Maybe if something big happens, like maybe if we finally sign Bakayoko, we'll do a special. It'll be nice to get some good vibes into the whole transfer season, since everybody's freaking out about not signing everybody, etc., etc. It should be pointed out that the supposedly best team in the league last season, old Spurs, have done zero business so far. So at least we're ahead of them, right? And if we're ahead of the best, then we're in decent shape. But I think I don't think we're anywhere near done in the transfer market. So stay tuned. Anyway. So hopefully we'll be back, I'd say, over the weekend at the latest, maybe earlier. We'll keep you updated. If you made it this far or watched any of it, thanks for watching. And thanks for all the questions. And we'll see you later. Bye.